Today at Issue for Teens, how to make school safe.
Don't forget to wash your face.
Yeah, when's the last time you took a bath?
That's at Issue today. Welcome to At Issue for Teens. I'm Kevin O'Keefe. You know, if you were in high school, this stat may not surprise you, but your parents might be shocked. In a recent survey, over 80% of students said verbal abuse happens on a regular basis at school, and almost half said bullying goes on all the time. Well, Daniel Sebben knows that reality all too well. His bullying started when he was in grade 8 and got worse in high school. Eventually, he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and became suicidal. And he joins me in the studio along with his mom, Karen. Welcome to the show, both of you. Daniel, I want to start with you. Give me a sense of how the bullying started. You were in grade 8?
It's even hard to explain how it started because it just all of a sudden started. Like, I
One
didn't
day.
realize, yeah, just one day it was just, Dan, you're gay, Dan, like, it was all homophobic slang.
Right.
And all of a sudden, just like, you're in grade 8, you don't really think of it much then, right? It's just name calling or whatever. But all of a sudden, like grade 9 and 10 hit, it was just like, okay, this isn't name calling anymore. This is harassment.
And what did you do when it started? Why didn't you tell anybody about what was happening to you?
Well, because I thought, like, we're just young kids. Maybe they're just joking around. Maybe it'll stop. That's what I always thought.
But we noticed a change at home. It was bothering him.
You could see the difference. What sort of things did you notice?
He couldn't tolerate teasing of any kind anymore. We noticed it around February, March of grade 8. A red flag went up as far as your parents are concerned, but we couldn't pinpoint it. And I thought I asked all the right questions.
Well, what did you talk to Daniel about?
I asked him, is everything okay at school? And he didn't share the information.
No, I didn't say a thing.
Why wouldn't you say something to your mom?
I really don't know. It's just, like, you're young. You don't really think of anything like that. Like, maybe, like, if I tell my parents, maybe they're going to freak out on me for doing something. Like, we're young. We don't think like that.
So how did you deal with it?
I started smoking before grade 8. I started hanging out with the kids that smoked, and then got into high school, and then just hung out with the crowd that smoked.
You smoked pot?
Yes, I did.
With it?
Yeah.
And you cut yourself, I understand, as well.
Yeah, I actually dropped out of school into an alt-ed program because of medical. I was using it for medical use because I was down, right? Well, that would just make you even more down, and then I just kept doing it, skipping school and doing it. And that's why I dropped into the alt-ed program, so I would be able to get my high school diploma and get out of that hellhole.
Why did you cut yourself? People don't understand what that is.
It's hard to explain because at first it becomes just like a self-healing thing. Like, why am I here?
It releases endorphins.
Endorphins.
When you cut yourself, endorphins are released, and it gives you a temporary good feeling.
So it makes you feel better.
It's almost like an adrenaline rush. Say if you get pissed off, or excuse me, if you get mad and you hit something, you're fine afterwards. It's something like that.
Right.
But it got to the point like it was almost every day.
Wow. Now, Karen, parents, I'm sure, watching this at home right now, the first thing that would pop into their mind is you just go to the principal and they take care of this sort of thing. What happened when you went to the principal?
We started with the principal in grade 8 once he finally disclosed what was going on, and this is a principal that I had supported for 5 years because I sat as co-chair on parent council.
So you're involved in the parent council.
I was involved with their
know
education.
The principal.
I was in that school.
You're active in the school.
And I got the attitude of boys will be boys. So we thought, okay, you know what? In September, it's the start of high school. Let's just leave it alone and see what happens.
Start fresh.
Third weekend, he gets hauled out of his chair and beaten about the face.
Tell me about that. What happened when you went to high school?
I said one thing in my defense, which probably wasn't the right thing because...
so they were teasing you in the class and you said something back.
There was actually a supply teacher that day. It was gym. It's gym, but they split gym and health together, so it was like the health part of gym. So we were in the classroom. Well, we had a supply teacher, and everybody's talking, and teacher's sitting at his desk not doing much of anything before the class starts. And then the kid starts, the main aggressor starts with the homophobic slang. And then his buddies join in, and then they stop just because they started talking with their buddies again. And then the main aggressor continues with what he's doing. And then in my one defense, which I shouldn't have said because his house burnt down the year before.
Okay.
And so in my defense of him with all homophobic slang, I said, at least my house didn't burn down.
So you made fun of him?
In a way. I know I shouldn't have said that, but at the time it was just blurted out there, right?
Yeah, you're angry.
So he came up, came up to me, picked me up out of my chair, pushed me 3 times, and then slapped me.
How did you have to rearrange Daniel's life in order to avoid these guys?
Well, the next day after we found out what happened, because again, he did not come home and tell us. He thought he would get it from us, but he slowly learned how supportive his parents were, actually. I asked the school to remove that child from his class. And the vice principal became very angry and annoyed with me because that child is also entitled to be there. And I agreed and then suggested that they remain as far apart as possible in the same class. Because, I mean, you have to understand, it was like a follow the leader type of situation. There was one main aggressor and 5 followers. So there were a total of 6 of them. And if it wasn't coming from 1 or 2, it was coming from kid number 3 and 4. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he was getting it all day long.
And it didn't matter where I was.
No avoiding
hallway.
It was everywhere. He was surrounded, and he never cowered. He always stood up from, you know,
You were
it's
told
lame.
just ignore it.
Yeah.
He was told no vulgarities in self-defense and absolutely no lifting your hands in self-defense.
I was told to not defend myself.
So you did everything the school said?
Yep.
But it was hard dealing with administration because I took it all the way to the superintendent. From many, I received sympathy and empathy, and my hands are tied. So every new semester, I would call guidance to check his schedule to see if any of these kids, well, mostly the main aggressor, if he was sharing a subject with Daniel, and whenever he was, I asked that the other child be made to choose another subject, and no, that's not possible because at that particular moment, in that 1 week, it had been quiet.
So how are you feeling through all this? You said you just had to change your whole life to avoid.
I had to change my whole life. Yeah, like how do you deal with that? It's so hard at that age when you want to make friends. When high school is supposed to be one of the funnest parts of your
growing up.
And you're spending the entire thing ducking bullies.
Ducking. Like the only relief I had in my high school was the 2 sports I played within the 2 years that I was actually in full-time school. And I still missed out on a lot. Like, I played soccer and I snowboarded. Soccer was my life at that time. And it was my relief out of everything. It didn't matter what it was, even, like, I was playing even high-end soccer for Newmarket, so it didn't matter what it was my release. I'd go and I wouldn't want to be there at all. But by the time the end of practice or the game, I'm smiles. It was like
eventually, though, you have to leave high school, right?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to leave?
The only way I was able to leave was the alt-ed program.
So what is that, alternative education?
Do you want me to explain?
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, because
so you're juggling his schedule, you're moving him to all these different classes.
We're dealing with his emotions. Why does nobody care about him in the school environment? And when you get that after 2 years, you start to really believe
that they don't
that
care
you
about
are.
you.
No, but you started to believe that you were useless, worthless.
I did believe
you
I
weren't
was
worthy
useless.
of anybody's love or friendship. And his psychologist had suggested he was becoming suicidal thoughts. And the psychologist said, you know, you have to get him out of the mainstream. That environment will not change, so you have to change his environment. And what alt-ed is, he went to school every Wednesday, and he worked full-time the remainder of the week.
Well, that's not just the only alt-ed. There's co-op,
there's
all those other things.
That's the alt-ed that he ended up in.
That's the arrangement that they
So
finally made.
instead of being in school, being with friends and peers,
it was with a few friends that, like, they were, pretty much the programs for the kids that are the dropouts. It was more of a dropout kid program, but it's also a program to help the kids get out of high school. And the kids that were actually in the programs they all wanted out. It was laid back, there was no stress. It was go to school once a week, and if you don't finish your work that day, bring it back the next week.
Eventually, you took the case to the Human Rights Commission. Did that solve your problem?
Nope.
No.
What
Felt
did they?
Worse.
Why? You both sighed at the same time.
What?
You could actually, it wasn't as far as I would like to have gone.
They ruled in your favor. You received some sort of a settlement.
Yes, and I'm prohibited by law to not discuss that settlement with anybody. It was.
You didn't feel any sort of validation or confirmation? You sigh again.
Tiny bit of disclosure, but not much.
No, not much, because sitting there, you actually see just how big a Board of Education is. And I think at the end of the day, there was no accountability. There was still no accountability, because I don't care what any healthcare professional says, what any law professional says, or what any educational professional says. Under no circumstances is there any reason good enough for any child to live that kind of experience.
How did the bullying stop?
Restorative justice.
We put it into play.
Our principal, we had a tremendous principal for 1 year.
Eventually, you got a tremendous principal.
In the 10th grade.
It was because of him it stopped.
It stopped, that's the year it stopped.
When I hit rock bottom.
You hit rock bottom.
And what happened? What's restorative justice?
It's a procedure that's, if I remember correctly, it's a takeoff of the old Indian healing circle. You bring all parties involved in a situation, and you sit in a circle. And each individual has a turn to explain how this situation has impacted them. And in our circle, it was Daniel and his older brother, my husband and I, the facilitator, a vice principal, the main aggressor, and his father. So we each had a turn to discuss how it impacted us negatively, and then we each had to come up with a solution on how we could change it. Then we wrote an agreement, and everybody signed it, and the young lad was told, if you break this agreement, you're gone.
And he never broke it?
He never broke it.
No, after that, a couple days
later,
it was done. Absolutely, I was just like...
Now, keep in mind, our psychologist recommended against it because he felt that would just be re-victimizing.
Well, there was the other one that we had, what was the other one that we wanted to do, that we said no about?
I think you were going to meet once, and then you finally agreed to participate in it. I want to know how you're doing now. What's your future like now?
Now I've been working for what?
So you graduated from high school?
I graduated from high school. Not honors. Oh, close. I was close.
What do you want to do now?
Now I want to be a plumber. I've been doing plumbing now for 2 years. 2 years, and it's different. I wish I was young again, because now I got other bills to pay for. But it's been a different experience, life-changing experience, what I went through.
Well, I appreciate you coming forward and talking about it. I'm sure there are people at home that have been that are in your situation now.
Yes.
So it's very courageous what you're doing. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I want you to stay right there. We'll bring you back later on in the show. But first, when we return, what the police have to say about stories like Daniel's. Stick around.